My magazine challenges the general conventions of real media products in many ways, but at the same time utilises already existing conventions in order to make a product unique in itself, yet still appeal to the audience who can recognise some features of the product and identify that magazine as one they would like to purchase. There are a few ways in which the cover of my magazine challenges your typical magazine conventions. My first example is that, unlike almost all magazines, my magazine does not advertise a competition on the cover. I have chosen not to advertise a competition on the front because I feel like the content on the front page looks good enough without the aid of a protruding circle off one of the sides. I tried adding things in, but it just didn't fit. The cover looks better off without it. And with the space freed from not having a competition puff, I was able to add more detail to the cover and make it look like a more professional publication. The front cover also has a darker background, which for quite a lot of rock magazines is a normal occurrence when a heavy band is on the cover, like this Kerrang magazine. But that's the difference. The band on the front of my magazine is not a hardcore or metal band, quite the opposite really, yet I have still chosen to use a black background since a white background simply didn't look right. And although a lot of their music is deemed quite pop rock, some of their music is still heavy, so in effect the background is actually justified. Even though the featured band are a juxtaposition to the more common cover bands, I chose to use them because they are a band making waves in the music industry at the moment. They cannot be defined into one genre, so to go along with their rule-defying attitude, I decided to put them on the front cover. The poster advertisements are placed in the bottom left of the page instead of the skyline, and that was because I decided I wanted to display them in a specific manner, and if they're on the skyline I wouldn't be able to do that to the effect that I wanted to. And one of the main ways my magazine challenges stereotypical conventions is that the colour the headline is in. It's deemed a dull colour, and also that there is no large graphic behind said headline, unlike what you see in other magazines. The last way I have found my magazine challenges conventions is the way it has quite a clean look about it. The text boxes don't have all of the jagged edges or unreadable fonts, or drawn-on graphics detracting people's attentions from the main article. Also, the cover line for my magazine is in the same font as the title, only smaller, unlike this magazine where there is multiple fonts and sizes in the title. I have chosen to do this in order to start and create a house style for my magazine, to have a group of fonts that people will start to recognise that belong to my publication. When looking at other magazines, I decided that I liked some of the features but didn't think they would fit directly into my magazine style, so chose to develop them to still keep the authenticity but to fit my style. One of the more subtle yet still effective features is the ripped skyline. The Kerrang magazine I have chosen here has a straight skyline, but most magazines have a quite distressed and ripped look to them. However, most of those styles were too drastic for the look that I wanted my magazine to have, so I still decided to have the ripped style of the skyline but only smaller tears to still get the effect without being over-dramatic. I have also chosen to do this because most of the time the more distressed look is linked with the heavier rock and metal magazines, and while my magazine will still include those genres, they aren't the most prominent. My magazine is targeted for audiences of all genres, so it wouldn't be suited for people who like more pop rock by having a skyline suited for only heavy metal. One of the main features of any magazine is the cover image. The image on the front of my magazine is inspired by the 21 Pilots issue of Rock Sound, where they pulled the same pose but are in completely different outfits in a different scenario. I chose this pose because I knew I could position puffs and cover lines exactly how I wanted around the shapes of their bodies, but I chose to have a more plain and discreet style of background in order to make the band the centre point of focus, not other parts of the cover. The pose is also somewhat reminiscent of old war posters, with the pointing of the finger when they used to recruit people to the army, and that's similar to what they are doing in the issue, attracting people to join their fan base. It can also make the reader feel like the band are personally pointing at them. When something is made personal to the audience, they are more likely to purchase the magazine. Possibly one of the most underrated parts of a magazine is the masthead. By that I don't mean the official name of the magazine, more like the style and the font. Without even noticing, a lot of people will recognise a specific font or style because it is a masthead font. For example, Kerrang have the shattered glass style font, and Rock Sound have quite a bold and clean font with a distressed cog shape around the R. After looking at those magazines, I decided I would have a bold and clean font for my masthead, but still have a bit of distressing to it so it's still linked to the genre, as rock music and other genres surrounding it aren't usually associated with being clean or tidy. So I wanted to reflect that within my masthead. I also wanted a font that was unique in itself and easy to recognise in order to create a clear brand identity. I also chose to place my barcode below the Panic! At the Disco pull line on the right hand side, as the barcodes are usually on that side of the magazine, either at the bottom or at the top. Another thing is that a more subtle yet quite prominent part of publishing a magazine is the price. I chose to price my magazine at £2.50, just a little bit more than the £2.20 that Kerrang magazine charge, yet less than the £3.99 Rock Sound charge, and since they are the most popular, I decided to put mine right in the middle. In my treatment sheet I had said that I would put it at £1.70, but for the amount of content you would get in it, I decided I would move the price a little higher. It was also moved up since there's that wide of a variety of genres, you're essentially getting a few magazines in one. When constructing my magazine, I also chose to use some conventions, to keep some traditions. The first is also to do with my masthead, and the fact that it spreads right across the width of the cover, just like Rock Sound and Kerrang magazine. I chose to do this because in my opinion it gives more detail to the cover, and it also makes sure no one can just look over the cover and not realise what the name of the print is. Other ways in which I use generic conventions is that I've used quite a few different fonts on the cover, just like my chosen comparison. I have put images along with my pull lines so there isn't too much text piled onto the page, in order to keep the audience interested, since too much text on a front cover can put people off, and also keep the somewhat clean layout that I was trying to achieve. Another point is that I used the colour yellow in order to highlight articles of importance, just like many other magazines. My magazine also featured a colour scheme, which is very popular to do within prints, like this Kerrang magazine has a yellow, red, white and blue. The colours are all vibrant and work together. With my magazine I chose to have the main colours of white, black, red and blue. They all contrast and complement each other, just like the colours that on the Kerrang magazine do.